Hello, and welcome back to my channel, or possibly welcome for the very first time. Either way, I'm glad you're here. My name is Jason, or as you may know me from other places on the internet, EasyCat. If you follow me on other social media, you know that I talk a lot about books, board games, and just all kinds of other nerdy things. But here on YouTube, I've mainly only talked about books so far. Well, that changes today. You may have already seen a couple of these, but I'm planning to do lots of live playthroughs, some reviews, all kinds of fun things. But I figured for this first board game video, I would show you my top 5 board games, my favorite board games currently. You know anything about me, it's that my favorite list changes sometimes by the day, but this is my current 5 favorite board games. These are games that if anybody walked my house and said, hey, I want to play that, I would say absolutely yes, let's do it right now. And of course, I would love to know your favorite board games as well, so feel free to let me know that. Let me know if any of these is on your favorites list. If you like books or board games or other nerdy nonsense, make sure to like and subscribe and follow along on this little YouTube adventure as I attempt to make videos that are longer than 60 seconds. That's enough of that, let's jump in. Coming in at number 5 is Cartographers. I put this little box here to display them. And even then, Cartographer is so little. I'll just hold him. Cartographers is a game where you'll actually be creating a fantasy world map. Every round, a card will come out, and you'll be trying to draw different terrains into your map in order to earn the most points across 4 separate seasons. I especially love that when monsters come out, you have to switch your map with someone else, and they get to draw your monsters in to kind of like mess you up. I love Cartographers for a lot of reasons. One is that it's incredibly simple to teach and learn. I love using this as like an intro game for people that are new to games, especially because being able to like create your own something and write on the thing in front of you is so tactile, and I feel like so many people who have never really played board games or card games at all before this is just something completely outside their wheelhouse. Like the second you give them something and say, hey, you're gonna write on this and you're gonna create something, you can kind of just see like the sparkle in their eyes. This game also has like a ton of expansions, so there's tons that you can add to it to just customize it some more. It also has a really excellent solo mode, so if you are like on a flight for a while, or if you just need something to like pass the time and you're sick of your Sudoku or whatever else the kids are playing these days, you could try Cartographers instead. I love that it has you name your land, it has you give yourself a title, like it's just full of fun little things and ways to write. And the game is simultaneous play, so what's great about it is that everybody is taking their turn at the same time. So there's really no downtime, there's no waiting for someone else to take their turn. It's a really fast-paced game. And to that end, you can have as many players as you want playing it. So if you have a really big group and you just don't know what to have them play, this is a great option. The game literally says 1 to 100 players, so like, you can have a lot of people playing this. Play it at your wedding. Have your whole, like, stop the wedding and just have everybody play Cartographers. That might be a little weird. Maybe don't do that. One thing I am not known for is wedding advice. And there's a good reason for that. Of all the games on this list, this is definitely the one I would recommend the most for new game players. Coming in at number 4 is Aeons End Legacy. Now, Aeons End is a game that we love no matter what form. There's lots of different boxes you can get with Aeons End in them, but specifically Aeons End Legacy is something really special. So if you're new to board games, a legacy game is essentially a game with a lot of like hidden pockets and hidden compartments and things like that. And so as you play rounds, you'll actually unlock things that will then get added to the game to permanently change it. Legacy games will have you rip up cards, they'll have you add stickers, they'll have you write on pieces. Like you are sort of making the game as you play it, which is such a cool concept. And ever since legacy games got introduced, there have definitely been amazing ones and there have definitely been really bad ones. But by far, our favorite has been Aeons End Legacy. So Aeons End as a game is all about these mages doing magic battles with big, epic monsters. It is a cooperative game, so you're all working together to fight these monsters with different forms of magic. And already, just without the legacy elements, Aeons End is a really, really fun and challenging cooperative game. But this game in particular, when we got this, we set it up on our table and we just played a game every single night. And it was so much fun, not only because Aeons End is already a really great cooperative system, but because the story is really good. I feel like there are only a handful of legacy games where like the story maintains its incredibleness and gives you tons of surprises the whole way through. Obviously, like Pandemic Legacy is one of those, the very first one. Like there are boxes you open and just like have your mind blown, and I felt that way about this as well. There are tons of just really tense moments, and it's just exciting to like just barely beat a monster and then open up the next box and realize it's gonna be even more difficult the next time you play. You'll notice I'm not really opening this because I don't want to show you any spoilers, but there's just so many good twists and turns of this game. And I really love that you can kind of customize your character. So as you unlock new abilities, we were able to sit down and say, okay, you're going to take that because you're going to be more of this type of character. I'm going to take this because I'm going to be more of this type of character, to kind of round out our party. And yes, this can also be played solo. In fact, I think every game I'm showing you today has a solo mode, and that's a big reason why I like them as well, because I'm a big solo game player. This can be played solo up to 4 players. We played it with 2 players all the way through, and it was so much fun. Highly recommend. If you're going to try a legacy game, either this or Pandemic Legacy are going to be your best bets. Pandemic Legacy is also a cooperative game. I think Legacy works best in cooperative. Some of my least favorite Legacy games have been competitive Legacy games. It's just really fun to work together and to grow your team and to grow your little party into something really powerful by the end of the game. But if you like magic and action and like fantasy stories, I think you'll really like Aeons End Legacy. It's one of my favorite gaming experiences I've ever had. All right, coming in at number 3 is Ark Nova. Oh, words cannot express how much I love this game. So Ark Nova is essentially a game about building a zoo. So if you like stuff like Zoo Tycoon, that is this in a board game form. But this is a heavy Euro style game, which means there are so many things to think about. And you're basically like managing resources and managing little workers, and every turn just feels so tight. Like you have all these options and all these things you want to do, and you have so little time and so little like resources to do them with. So every decision matters. And as you build your zoo, you'll be filling in your map with different infrastructure and then adding animals to enclosures and making partnerships with other zoos and doing research. It really does have a lot of the complexity from Zoo Tycoon or even like Roller Coaster Tycoon that we love so much. It's also just really fun to add all these different animals to your zoo. Like there'll be times it doesn't even make sense point-wise, but I just really want a giant panda in my zoo and I'm gonna make it happen no matter what. I will say this game does have a pretty high complexity level. Like learning it and teaching it for the first time does take a good chunk of time. And playing the game takes a good chunk of time as well. In fact, even though the game goes up to 4 players, I do not recommend playing it with more than 3 players because you will be there forever. And that's because every player's turn, they do have a lot of options. So it can take a while to take your turn to decide what you want to do. And if you're waiting for another person to take their turn, it could feel like a long time as if you're playing with more than 3 players. I think if everyone at the table knew the game pretty well, I think you could go up to 4 players, but when you're learning, 2 to 3 max. The game also does have a solo mode, and it's one of my favorite solo modes in a Euro game like this. Essentially, the way the game works is you have 2 scoring tracks, right, that are kind of moving along, that are moving on opposite sides of the board. And when you're playing multiplayer, the game end is triggered by those 2, somebody like taking their 2 scoring tracks and like crossing them. So in a solo mode, you only have so many turns to get your 2 scoring markers to cross paths with each other. And if you do that, you win, and then you get to see how many points you got. And if you don't do that, you essentially lose. One thing I will say is though, even though this game is long, like when you play it, even with 2 or 3 players, it's gonna be at least a couple hours long, and that's if everybody knows the game. It doesn't feel long. Like this is a game that I feel like time just stops when I play it. Like when I sit down to play it, I feel like we'll be playing, and then all of a sudden when the game finally ends, I'll look down and be like, oh my God, we've been playing for 3 or 4 hours. And I don't feel that time. Like, you know, some games you play and you're like, oh my God, this game has been going on forever. Please make it stop. You don't feel that with this game. Like every time I play this, I feel like I go into some sort of time warp vortex. And when I finish the game, I come out of it confused and like I've just woken up from a dream in a spaceship. What am I even talking about? I don't know. Ark Nova is, like I said, a heavier, harder to learn game. But once you learn it, the game, everything in the game makes sense. Like once you have the game figured out, everything works like clockwork. I feel like the game board and everything does a really good job of reminding you when and what and how to do things. And so it moves pretty quickly once everybody knows the rule. I'm a big fan of like complex Euro-style games, and if I had to pick one to play, it would be Ark Nova every time. All right, we're getting into the end game. Number 2. Oh, hold on. Oh, it's so heavy. Too Many Bones. Oh my God, I love this game so much. Okay, so Too Many Bones, you play as these guys called Gearlocks, and you're essentially going on these little quests where you go on a little adventure and then you end up fighting a tyrant, which is like a big monster by the end. And as you play, you're trying to level up your character to unlock some different abilities. If you ever played anything like League of Legends, this is going to feel kind of, the actual ability unlocking piece is going to feel similar, because as you unlock abilities, you're getting new dice that you can then roll and add to your skills as you try to fight your your enemies. The actual gameplay feels more like a strategic battle, like a turn-based strategic battle where you're moving your characters around this very tight battlefield and trying to fight monsters. And it is cooperative, so you're trying to help your friends and trying to fight these monsters in this really tight space. This game is a very high production game, so there's tons of dice, there are tons of like poker chips that you'll be using as your characters. All of your health is tracked with these like red poker chips. Like, it kind of has that tactile experience of playing poker. The game is nothing like poker. It is not like poker, but because there are so many chips and things that you're moving around the table and dice being thrown, there's a lot of like tactileness to this game, and that's a big reason why I like it as well. And the actual strategic battles are so good because every character plays very differently. And much like games like League of Legends or Dota, a big challenge is trying to figure out how your character that you picked, how to like maximize their play style. This is not a game where you're creating your own character. You are picking a character that is sort of pre-built, and you are slowly adding to their character and unlocking abilities and trying to kind of find out the best way to play them for you as well as for the game. And that means that every time you play the same character, you might try a different skill tree or try a different path or, you know, play around with your abilities and try to find something that works even better than the last time. And this can be played solo with just one player, or you can play with more players. And what's really cool is when you play with more players, being able to really like kind of bounce your abilities off each other and work together in these really exciting ways as you fight your enemies. Each character uses one of these like really nice mats, and as you play, you'll be adding in dice to these slots, which then, you know, they really are like a skill tree, and you unlock different abilities, and then, you know, every time you go into a new battle, you're probably going to have a new ability to play around with and try. So it's always really, really exciting to get to your next battle to try what you just learned from winning or losing your last one. Now, because of the very nice components and the tons of stuff that comes in this box, any way that you go about it, Too Many Bones is a higher priced entry point for a board game. But I think it's worth it. I mean, the game, especially if you like strategic games, I don't know if I would pick this up as your very first board game, but if you know that you like strategy and you like building a character and you know that you like skill trees and you know that you like things that you can play solo or cooperative, I think it's one of the best, if not the best form of that game. Like, this is definitely up there with something like Gloomhaven. I typically tend to like to play this a little bit more simply because Gloomhaven is more of a campaign, right? This is broken up into little mini campaigns, so it's much easier, especially if you have a hard time getting a group together, to just sit down and play this for one night and be done. Because in one night, you can go on an adventure, you can fight a tyrant, you can build a character. You just get all of that. Whereas Gloomhaven, you have to play several sessions. And if you have a dedicated group where you're playing solo, that's totally amazing and wonderful. But a lot of people don't. I know so many people are like, well, I didn't get very far in Gloomhaven because we couldn't get a group together and we couldn't make it happen. And it was just, you know, it just never happened. Whereas this, even with one gameplay session, you're going to go on a whole adventure. And I think that alone makes it so worth it. And also just, I mean, the components, yes, they're a higher price point, but they are worth that higher price point. Like, everything from the chips to the mats, everything is just so well made. And it's such a nice change of pace from board games that are just like flimsy plastic and flimsy cardboard. And it's just, everything just feels so nice. And all of Chip Theory Games' games are like that. Like, they make like really, really nice products. And that's a big reason why they're one of my like top favorite board game companies, because they just make like the best thing they can make. Like, they look at something and they say, how can we make this just like the nicest product possible? And they do a really good job of it. So Too Many Bones is easily one of my favorite games of all time. I don't think this game will ever slip from my top 5. I'll be surprised if this game ever slips from my top 2, to be honest. So yeah. And finally, my number 1 favorite game, the game that I will never say no to playing, the game that is just, I think about it constantly. Everdale. Okay, this is the special edition slipcase, so I'm going to take this off so you can see the game a little bit better. Everdale. Everdale is like a little town building game where you are creating a town by like getting different critters that live in the town, different buildings, and kind of building this out in order to get the most points. Everything about this game is absolutely stunningly gorgeous. You know, the board is gorgeous. There's a lovely tree. I know a lot of people don't like to build the tree when they play, but you must, it's part of the experience. There are lots of little bits and coins, and of course, tons of cards with different buildings and different critters that live in this town. So here's the thing. There are lots of town building games, and I don't know that necessarily Everdale is the best one ever made, but for me, it is. And a big part of that is the theme. So the theme of like woodlands or woodland critters building towns or anything that reminds me of Redwall, really, is one of my favorite themes in a game. Like if I see that your town is like woodland critters doing something, I'm at least going to check it out because it is by far like, it is a theme that just never gets old to me. Really, it's like that cottagecore cozy vibes. I just love stuff like that. I also just love the aspect of building out your town and trying to complete everything you're trying to do. This game is so tight when it comes to resources and turns, and there just is never enough time. And it encourages me to play again and again and again to just try and like maximize every turn possible. I think the game is just stunning on the table. It's another game that I think is great to show new players because I think it really gets them. It's fun to build your own town. It's fun to like pick things off this board and figure out what you want to do. And it's really fun when you start to score and like points kind of score off of each other. You can, if you get like an inn, you can use the inn instead of your valuable resources to get an innkeeper, for example. And so being able to like find these little moments to maximize every little ounce of your turn is just really exciting. Everdale also has a bunch of expansions. They're all over there. I didn't bring them over, but they're all really cool. They all add some really unique elements to the game. I don't think you're supposed to play all of them together, like you're supposed to pick and choose one or the other, but you could, and it's a wild experience. Everdale also has a really cool solo mode where you are basically working to beat the game. So there's this evil character and he is trying to basically buy up land and you are trying to beat him as you play. And again, it's a really tight experience. It plays really quickly. So something that I don't like in a lot of solo games that have you playing against like a dummy character or like an evil character is their turn, like an AI turn, can just take so much time and there's so many rules to think about. With his turn, with Rugwart's turn, the turns go really fast and you don't really have to think very much. You're mainly like rolling a dice and doing a couple things, and then it's back to your turn and trying to figure out what you're gonna do. And it does add, it can be very random. Like I often don't feel like I have that much control over what cards he gets necessarily to build out his like arsenal. But it never feels cruel. It never feels punishing. It never feels like completely unfair. In fact, I kind of like that little bit of randomness. I think it adds like a little bit of excitement and a little bit of differentiation between every time I play it. This is a game that when I play solo, I will play like multiple rounds. Like I'll set it up on the table and I'll just play round after round after round because every time I play, I feel like my town is a little bit different. I feel like how I play and what things I go after are a little bit different based on what cards come out at the beginning. It's just always exciting to me, whether I'm playing by myself or playing with other people. And of course, it's just got my favorite theme ever. There are lots of games that I think about. I mean, I think about like things like Meadow, right? Root, like things like that just make my heart, just fill my heart with joy because I love things like Redwall and that sort of cozy cottagecore critter vibe. But Everdale, among all of those that I've played, is easily my favorite. And not only is it my favorite of those critter cozy games, but it is my favorite game. It's a game that is really accessible. It's got lots of strategy. There's a lot to think about, but it is a game that I think I could easily introduce on like a first time game night, as well as bring to a game night where people have been playing games for years. It's just really accessible on all fronts. It's one of those games that I think is perfect for any game night, and because of that, I just absolutely love it. What I really hope for this video is that, obviously, I want to introduce the idea of doing board games on my YouTube channel in longer form content, but I also hope that this gives you a better idea of what kind of gamer I am. Like, I love a lot of different types of games. You heard me talk about this with every single game, but I love solo games. I love playing games in a solo setting, just because to me it's like sitting down to build Lego or to do puzzles. Like, it just feels like this really nice, relaxing experience of getting to just sit down with a bunch of pieces and play. And not necessarily have to worry about other players. And I love playing with groups, but I also just really love the quiet, contemplative experience of playing a board game by yourself. I just think it's so lovely. Like I said at the beginning, I'm hoping to do board game playthroughs. I already have a couple live playthroughs on my page, and I'll continue to do those because I just think they're really fun to do live. But some board game reviews. I'll be going to Gen Con this year, so I'm hoping to build out some lists of like my most anticipated games. And if there's any other type of board game content you'd like to see here, whether it is for longtime board gamers or or if you're a first-time completely new to board game person, I'd love to create that content, so feel free to let me know what you would like to see in the comments down below. Make sure to like and subscribe, of course, because I'd love to see you back here for my next, whether it's a book video or a board game video. Those are my two favorite things. I've also got some other fun things in the works, so if you follow me on my other social media, you may know some of the other fun things that I like to talk about. I'm looking to bring a lot of that to YouTube as well. In the past, whenever I've done a book video, I've always ended the video by saying happy reading. That doesn't really make a lot of sense here unless you're reading the rule books. That's not usually very fun. So we're gonna change it up. So I hope you have an awesome day and happy playing.